Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and MBs, and welcome to the rematch of the very first millennium. It is Forfeit versus Forkel on this all-night Carnage Conundrum. I am your host, Shane, and I'll be ready to commentate my way through this knockout brawl for the ages. Joining me as always on co-commentary is the Soul Doctor.
Pew pew. It's me.
Wait, where's your wrestling commentator's voice? God damn it!
All right. So okay, let's try that again. Well, hey there, Shadon. It looks to be quite the slobber knocker in store for us. I can't wait to see what these two competitors have in their tanks.
I mean, to switch accents suddenly, I do believe that Forkel has the height, the weight, the reach, the weapon advantage, the hair advantage, the beard advantage. He's got all the advantages, Doc. I don't quite know what Thorfinn's going to do to win.
Well, let me tell you. Thorfinn, I know him. Talked to the kid this afternoon. He's here. He's ready to deliver an ass whipping. He may not have the size, the speed, the carburetor skills, but he does have toughness. He has the heart of a lion, and we'll see that on display tonight in the ring.
I mean, I believe he's here to make a killing tonight, Doc, specifically on Askeladd. He wants that son of a bitch dead. And he's willing to kill to keep killing, you know. It's a cycle, do you see? Do you get it?
Askeladd is under his skin, and I think he's due an ass whipping. I think the ass whipping fairy has come home to roost.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I'm going to abandon the bad accent, folks, and welcome you all after this break to our usual stream of thought nonsense. So we're back to cover Vinland Saga episode 18, Out of the Cradle.
If we were doing
the C. Clarke episode.
If we were doing like the Japanese wrestling commentary, we would just get louder and talk over each other. That's the idea. Just like,
I thought that's what we did anyway. I thought that's...
Chotto mate kudasai! Toto desu ka! And just getting crazy loud.
Anyway, but clearly I was mistaken. Maybe I just need to speak in Japanese to complete the effect.
Nani? Nani?
Exactly. So, thank you very much, everyone, for your patience with Vinland Saga, because it was ruined previously by sports getting in the way. Sports ruin everything for everyone.
They do.
Us nerds still being pushed in the lockers by jocks. It's just not fair, is it? You know? But we're back to our usual bullshit, so without further ado, we're going to crack on. What we'll firstly get, though, is we do have polls from last time, if I'm not mistaken, and I believe Doc is going to take a quick nosy at them.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at the polls. You can participate at Warui Deshou on Twitter. By the way, before I get to talking, just going to send out the apology beforehand. Still, I think last time I said I have a touch of the sick. The sick has grabbed me fully. Its icy reaper-like hand has enveloped my entire throat and nasal cavity and squeezing tightly. So I'm going to sound disgusting. And I know I look rough, so apologies, everybody out there. Going to do my best to get through it and mute when necessary, but I'm sure I will fuck that up. So just apologies beforehand.
I will similarly throw out one apology beforehand, because just prior to this stream starting, my PC decided it'd have an aneurysm and just start splurting blood everywhere, or what is the equivalent of it. Because when I plugged in these wonderful headphones here into the front audio jack, I was just listening to a YouTube video and then went and then just completely keeled over. It should be fine. Hopefully I don't get another dreaded case of the blue screen of death. I mean, I know I joked about it last time when I compared what was his name? One of the brothers. Name eludes me.
The brothers?
You remember the two bros?
Oh,
like,
right. Yeah.
Because he had a brain melt.
Yeah,
he had a brain melt, you know? He couldn't cope anymore. Like, he shot his brain literally out of his body looking at 4K. Like, you hear that when someone craps themselves. He did the most extreme version of it. So, unfortunately, my PC did the same. I'm hoping that will not repeat. But if the stream does suddenly die at any point, that could very well be why, and I will do my best to bring it back to life as quickly as possible, even if that involves me headbutting it.
Necromancy of the stream.
Hey, I've been practicing to be a necromancer for many years, and it's finally time for me to exercise that talent. Anyway, Doc, do please take us through the polls while we wait.
All right.
I'm going to mention, by the way, my head's also been pretty screwed up this evening by watching episode 7 of Babylon, which I'm not going to talk about here, except...
Later.
Oh, jeez, my God, no!
Later. Let's talk about that later on. We have This is, I guess, as good a time as any to talk about this little extra bit, but we have decided for all of our patrons to do a little something. We're adding more value to your money.
We're throwing more out there.
That's right. And this is for all patrons. This little extra gift, this little extra reward for $2, $3, and $5 tiers. We're going to give you a little something every week called Warui Deshou After Hours, where after the free show, we will record a little bit of a overrun, a little bit of a B-side, if you will, podcast about whatever we feel like talking about. And that's just a little extra to throw in for you guys. And I think Shadon might want to talk about Babylon this week.
No, I'm not going to talk about Babylon this week. I'm going to talk about Guilty Gear Strive. Get my opinions on that.
Okay, good. Some non-anime chatter. Very good.
I'm gonna save the Babylon stuff for a different day because I need to see the whole show. I may potentially call on the Bucket Man to help me with that because.
Ooh, yeah, okay.
Oh, that fucking show!
The bucket signal. It's a good signal.
Anyway, I'm gonna restrain myself. All right, so polls.
Patreon.com/Warui Deshou to get in. Polls, you can vote at Warui Deshou on Twitter. We try to put these up during the show and then leave them up for a week and check in on them afterward before we get to the following episode. So these are the polls from episode 17 that we're checking in on before we get to 18. So without further ado, poll number 1. How boss is Shadon's new room?
It's now got a lamp in it, so you can increase your answer on that if you want.
The degree of bossitude has increased. Big Boss is the winner at 44%. Bossa Nova, 33%, second place. Boss Nass coming in third place. That's the real answer. Boss Nass should have been the winner.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
That should have been the winner.
You're wrong.
If you didn't vote for it, you shall be punished.
I know you synced up, but that's not time for you to start doing that.
Poll 2. When you see someone falling in slow motion, does Yoko Kanno in the seatbelts Greenberg run through your head?
I'm gonna just before you even read out the answers to this, I was watching this particular poll for a little bit, and I feel either very old or I'm just like, you people need educating. What is going on?
They're doing it to fuck with you. Yeah, they're trolling.
They're trolling me.
53% say always, and the other 47 say, who is Yoko Kanno? I put that there knowing you all would do that. Surely you know who.
You all lying. You're lying.
But in case you don't know, Yoko Kanno, she is probably like the premier anime composer of the 90s and one of the best ever. Has composed the soundtracks for Cowboy Bebop, Macross Plus, Wolf's Rain, The Vision of Escaflowne. And that's just a few right off the top of the dome. There is a whole slew of other incredible work she's done. And as you can tell from the ones I've just read, it's not like she sticks to one lane. Like, she is great across all genre, like sort of orchestral classical, Escaflowne, jazz, Cowboy Bebop. You got Wolf's Rain, which is, pretty sparse melodic guitar soundtrack, a lot of acoustic guitar. And Macross Plus is just like a weird grab bag of a lot of different things. So, yeah, she's extremely versatile, very good. Look her up. Do yourself that favor.
Get educated.
And educate yourself. Poll 3. Did the show peak when Thorkel uppercut the horse? I forgot about this poll.
Yes, it did.
70% say yes, Shoryuken. And after this week, I'm going to have to disagree with the poll because I thought it peaked, but it really didn't peak. This week was the peak of the Vinland. But we'll get into that in just a few minutes. Poll 4, all things considered, how do you feel about Askeladd? I can't believe this is 100%. 100% said he's awful, but I love him.
Damn.
No one said that they can't bring themselves to like him, which I thought at least the couple people in chat that I know would feel that way. But he's hard to just hate, this guy. He really, really is.
He went to the Griffith School of Charisma.
It's right. He's top of his class.
Yeah, got his diploma there and all that. You know,
It's
I mean, when he's such a smug prick, you know. I mean, he's like Wales is like leading source of smug as export. You know.
Oh my gosh. Did she do Kids on the Slope as well, Yoko Kanno? That's cool. I just popped chat up again and I see the Yoko Kanno chatter, which is good. I refuse to admit that she plagiarized a random French song. I think people borrow melodies all the time. All right, just ask Coldplay. Everyone does it. But yeah, those are the polls. Look out for more at Warui Deshou on Twitter. So now we're going to talk about episode 18. But before the lovely, handsome, and manly Shadon summarizes what happened this episode, out of the cradle, Yorikago no Soto, I will talk briefly about who made it. So, the writers remain the same as ever. Kenta Ihara and Hiroshi Seko, our boy, continue their adaptation job as head writers. But this episode has two directors. Last week, or 2 weeks ago rather, information was not available for me to talk about, so I wasn't able to
educate as well.
I wasn't able to say that last week marked a first and that there were 3 episode directors for last week.
Were they all like crossing each other's arms over on the keyboard?
Yeah, yes, absolutely, that had to have happened. Or what if they were like, I don't know, it was like some scene out of Ghost in the Shell where they were all wearing VR and just typing, like they were all laid back just typing, but like they were interacting in VR, and that was how it was going. That's how I choose to believe it happened. But it was all with Google Cardboard instead of high rig VR sets. So this episode has 2 directors though. One of we've already talked about, Atsushi Kobayashi. Kobayashi directed episode 14. And also did the storyboards for episodes 5 and 7 of Vinland Saga. So we talked about him, but we have not talked about Shujiro Ami. I believe Ami, A-M-I. I don't think it's pronounced Amy. I'm going to go Ami to be on the safe side. Right. Was a co-episode director here of 18. Very cool CV, I think. Ami is mostly an animator. Lots of key animation credits. A couple of like animation director, assistant animation director credits. But like probably, I think, depending on how you feel about certain visual novel adaptations, like, Grisaya or Little Busters.
Grisaya?
Well, just some animation, just some key animation.
Okay,
for,
fair enough. Yeah, I was going to say that was a show which, I mean, Grisaya's got some pretty fucked up stuff in it, so I can understand that didn't quite make the cut.
Mm-hmm.
But then you kind of also lose some of the. Well, I'll discuss that another time. But yeah, some of the shit in that thing be fucks. It'd be Babylon episode 7 fucks.
It is pretty fucked. But I think probably like the biggest feather in Ami's cap is they were the key animator, not for any like one portion or one episode, but key animation credit for the movie Mary and the Witch's Flower, which is, if you've not heard of it, it is, I'm trying to see what the name of the studio is that did it, but it's basically like someone kind of picked up the ball that Ghibli laid down in the middle part of this decade and ran with it. Like Mary and the Witch's Flower is like so in the spirit of the Studio Ghibli, like the more modern Studio Ghibli movies, but it's not done by Ghibli.
We should talk about those some days. Maybe we should get round to covering Ghibli some.
I know. I keep telling myself that it's gonna happen.
I know. We need to get off our asses and do it.
We really should.
Yeah.
Oh man, but that's another discussion. We don't want to like create unrest among the patrons.
Oh well, no.
So, but yeah, that's Ami, and that's the credits for this week.
All right then. Well, I suppose that leads us quite nicely onto the actual events of this episode, which, I mean, it has been, over a week's gap thanks to sports ruining everything as always.
We love sport.
At least, this episode is very sporting, pun intended, by picking up where it left off, which is...
The battle in the blizzard. The showdown in the snowdown.
Now,
The
you've all probably
Reykjavik
seen...
Rumble. Sorry.
You've all probably seen, by the way, that meme of the dog sat in the room that's on fire, drinking its cup of cocoa, is going like, this is fine.
Mm-hmm.
This is the point, by the way, in which my room really should have sat on fire for proper effects, but it didn't. Now, obviously, that really isn't exactly happening here, but it is the same kind of mood, because our opening scene of this episode, which is just incredible, is Thorkel's axe just nearly, it nearly left poor Thorfinn as bald as I am, just swinging over him. And he's like, this is fine. I got this. I think I should be okay. So they trade a couple of, shots at each other, but without really landing anything. Thorkel just played can't hit Thorfinn because he's that quick. But in return, Thorfinn is just not sufficiently armed to really injure Thorkel all that much, especially since he's wearing chainmail. But this is the point where we get a little elaboration from Thorkel to Thorfinn about their shared history, about actually putting it out in the open, specifically that, hey, you're like, Thor's was good. And Thorfinn says, well, I thought he was like the son of a Jarl. I was like, no, Helga was the royal one. Thor's rose to right. And I really like not a big talking point for me on this one, but I like this little detail that you can tell that the gears are grinding in Thorfinn's head. Like, how does he know Helga's name?
Uh-huh.
Because if you think about it, knowing who Thor's is, understandable. Thor's was a great warrior, famous warrior, the Troll of Yon. Helga, who the fuck knows who she is? Like, she's just...
Clay fighter character.
Yeah, just his wife,
Yeah.
No one's got any idea who that is. So that's like saying some ideas off there, but bear in mind he's still in battle and he's still got his bloodlust. So even though he really should stop and think, wait a minute, I might want to ask how he knows her, he doesn't. But that's understandable. So anyway, we of course have the OP, and we then cut to Canute. And Canute is he's appearing in the latest L'Oreal advert because he's worth it with all that wonderful hair. Lay down, all spread out, all his locks flying all over the place. But he's having a quick nap in the middle of the battlefield. And, hey, don't blame me, he's had a rough day, so, hey, might as well get some shut-eye. When he has this nap, though, he has a dream. Although what you could also then maybe interpret it potentially as a vision from God, who can say? Because he's believed, he's still very much a Christian and a man of faith. But in this dream, for now, but in this dream, the white wizard Ragnar approaches because he's got a little grey around the edges, and he of course goes up to him and says, "Canute, I come with a warning." No, of course he doesn't. And
Canute puts his hand through him. It's like, whoa, this is rad. No, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I really shouldn't be making too light of this scene because it is a really nice moment between.
It's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, I mean. I'm going to talk about this later, character, but this is really well, yes, I am, Dana. You are exactly right. I have very luscious long hair. I'm afraid that all I've got is my steel woolen grey beard that I'm going on here. One day I'll be as fabulous as Canute's. One day. But anyway, so this scene is a goodbye scene. Now, again, whether you want to interpret this as just Canute's imagination filling in for the actual goodbye he didn't get to have with Ragnar versus, an actual visitation by his spirit, that's up to you. I don't see it like one way or the other. It can be whatever you want it to be. But in this, Canute confesses that he loves Ragnar as a father and he wishes that he was his son and not, of royalty, of his, from his actual bloodline. And Ragnar in turn says, I was supposed to raise you as a prince, but I raised you as my own son in turn. So it's kind of like a confession, for both of them here before he fades off into the distance. So Canute wakes up in tears, and that's understandable. I mean, he's had a rough time with like his father. Like, I'm just going to call Ragnar Canute's father and have done with it, because for me, as someone who, for me, speaking very honestly here, as someone who himself is estranged from like one side of my parents because of many, many personal reasons, like, family is not bound by blood. Family is bound by, actions and kinship and, caring and love and all that.
The heart.
So for me, like, from my perspective, I am very much of the opinion that Ragnar is Canute's father, but that's just my perspective, and that will be important for something else later. Anyway, waking up, the battle's still going on, and Bjorn's being Bjorn, and he's just throwing some motherfuckers around. Like, he's gone completely and utterly apeshit. Like, he had that berserker mushroom that we mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
So he's tripping balls, and he's, making mincemeat of everyone. But that is not merely to make him awesome, by the way. That, again, will be relevant for something later.
Question.
Go on.
Was what happened to your computer like what happened to that one guy's head at the hands of Bjorn on the tree? Just exploded in a ball of blood.
Having been looking at the logs, it's actually something to do with the power supply. So not quite, but I mean, as long as no one gets electrocuted in this fire, I think we should, we can leave the comparisons there. But the priest is there, he's hugging his own son as it happens, his nice big keg of beer.
His own
son. That is his son. That is his son. Let's be honest here. I love you, Booze.
Jack.
Jack, yeah.
Sweet goodness.
So you might recall previously that the priest was himself questioning what the idea of love was. And I want to know what love is.
Oh, that's a different direction. You went that way.
I want
you to show me.
Thus begins and ends the inaugural Warui Deshou karaoke hour for many good reasons. So, he starts talking to Canute about that. But while that's happening, various men of four kells who are looting the battlefield, they're like, is that not over yet? I could have sworn that was over. No, guys, really, it ain't over. Come on, we gotta go. So they come over and they find...
How's that guy not dead yet?
Why is that yet? Honestly. So they head on over and they find that indeed the fight between Thorkel and Thorfinn is still going on. Thorfinn has managed to land some kind of superficial cuts on Thorkel, but Thorkel, his arms are as thick as tree trunks and probably as leathery as a cow. So they're only superficial. And this is the point where we also get the painted Thorkel shirt rip, which I thought was like... just like... I mean, I think at this point he was just doing it to show off. Like, it honestly felt to me like he was flexing like the Incredible Hulk.
It's just, I was thinking Hulk Hogan because of the beard. Brother, let me tell you something right now, Thorfinn. You've unleashed Hulkamania. No, I guess it'll be Viking Mania. What you gonna do when all these Vikings go wild on you, brother? Also, eat your vitamins. Right. Say your prayers, Canute.
So, Thorkel and Thorfinn, they have a pause in their bout. Everyone is cheering them on, by the way, and say, he's doing really well. He's a tough little kid, he's quite quick and all that. So this is basically turned into entertainment now for all of them. They're enjoying this as a sport. But Thorkel, he takes a moment and says, hey, you know what? I haven't been able to kill you as much as you haven't been able to kill me. And I'm wondering about that. I'm a bit confused. But you're the son of Thor, so maybe what is it to be a true warrior? And now this is, of course, the moment for a flashback. Because without actually stating out loud, what did Thor say to Thorfinn the truth warrior should be?
He doesn't need a sword. He does not need an S word.
Does not need to kill.
Right.
Yeah, he does not need to kill, which that's what he's been basically trying to do ever since that fateful day that his dad actually told him that advice. Not really been paying much attention to the old father figure, all that stuff, Screw you, Dad, I'm going to do what I want.
He used to just stuff it down to survive. Screw
Yeah.
you, Dad. I'm entering my rebellious phase, so
Yeah, exactly.
pardon me while I go kill the entire population.
So we then, of course, go back to Canute, who's watching Bjorn still going completely and utterly batshit insane, killing people, trying to. Well, I was going to say try and defend Canute, but I think at this point, like any objective that Bjorn had in his mind of what he was meant to do has just left. He's just pure instinct now, pure violence and rage. So this is the point where the priest points out, Ragnar, didn't really love you. It's not like that. It's different.
What a discussion this was, by the way.
Yeah. So Canute says, well, what do you think love is? And he points to a dead body on the floor and he says, you know what? This person has become beautiful because they don't harm anyone anymore. They're part of nature. There's a stillness to them and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, he actually says that death perfects a person. This cuts to a silhouette of Thorfinn. Put a big pin in that for later because we're definitely going to be discussing whether that's accurate or not. Speaking of which, we then, of course, cut back to him and he's about to attack Thorkel again, saying, that was dirty, you, trying to make me relive the past. Which I don't think was Thorkel's intent necessarily. He just happened to conveniently land on those words and bring that back. So this is the point where Canute asks the priest, okay, what do you mean? What does it mean, when loved ones, mother and father love each other, or as Ragnar did for me? And he says, it's discrimination. It's discrimination because you were more important than anyone else to him. And that's not right. It's not fair. It's not good. So this is the point where Canute has kind of a revelation that I think is going to set him down a path that probably makes perfect sense to him right now, but is not going to end well. Thanks for that, priest. You should have really stuck to just looking after your own son rather than trying to educate others. Let me tell you, Jack. But,
yeah. Oh man. Also, man, we talk about this later more in depth, but this is pretty radical and kind of far out there for a Christian priest. Not that and this is, I think, probably a mistaken idea a lot of people have of Catholic Christendom, that it's very monolithic in its dogma, but you actually have a lot of different parts of the world and there's a lot of different people under the umbrella, and so you start to have regions and even local kind of populations that may or even individuals that believe some things that you might be what? How did you get here? But that's what I found myself wondering. I'm God, this is such a departure from doctrine,
But indeed, the priest himself was previously questioning his faith, and this in turn leads him to put the ideas of Canute's head. Because we've got the departed Ragnar offering his love and affection for Canute, but he's gone now. That's what that got him. That's how far that took him. Whereas the priest says, hey, maybe that was in the end what ultimately led to his failure. They treated you exceptionally, sheltered you even, perhaps.
Does he say that? Does he say that's what led him?
No. I'm inferring from his
okay.
I'm inferring.
Yeah.
And so this is the point where Canute says, okay, by the way, overcut with a hand plucking an apple, the fruit of knowledge. This is full Christianity going on here, and obviously it was eaten in Eden. That's when Adam and Eve got expelled and became, sinful people. So put a pin in that for later. There's going to be plenty of pins flying around here because this is a big moment of revelation for our wayward prince.
Revelation.
So he basically comes to the conclusion that, okay, God's created such a wonderful, beautiful world. Look at the snow, look at the land. And again, this ties back to the environmental ideal that is Vinland, how the world is unspoilt until men spilt their blood upon it and all that, fighting over basically nothing. Indeed, this is what, because he is just a wild animal at this point, fighting for no reason. He's certainly not necessarily protecting the prince, even consciously. And then you, of course, can compare that to Thorfinn and Thorkel, who are family, but are fighting on opposite lines for both their parts, no real reason. I mean, you could say, like, he wants to kill Askeladd, that being Thorfinn, of course. But, like I say, revenge, it won't make him any happier after the fact. I feel fairly confident in saying that. So, he says, all right, God, if your trials, if your tests for men are not going to, save them, then clearly something else is needed. Clearly, I need to take charge here. I need to do something about it. We then, of course, go back to the battle between Thorkel and Thorfinn, and Thorkel decides it's about time he started acting more like a Diablo 3 barbarian, because he throws up a shockwave of snow in Thorfinn's face. And then, well, he pumps him down the field, and that's,
What a kick.
The man uppercutted a horse! Anything else is possible at this point.
It's true. He put him up there with the Hawks, and probably broke a few of his bones in the fall.
I mean, there's your Yoko Kanno Green Bird moment right there.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. You could totally yes.
Mm-hmm. So back over with Canute. Bjorn actually now has finished off or at least what we see at the time is the last of Askeladd's mutineers, the people who turned against him. And so he comes towards Canute now, still completely and utterly lost to the mushrooms. He's in the mushroom kingdom, and the prince is not in another castle; it's right there in front of him, but he's going to murder him while he's at it. So Canute thinks, everyone's just nuts. I'm going to sort this shit out myself. I'm going to lead them. I'm going to tell them who and what to fight. And he actually stands up to Bjorn, who, he's pulling his best, Fred Tatasciore, or if you want to prefer, Lou Ferrigno here, with his, with his, blood-curdling scream that he's got. But he walks up to him and just puts his hand on his face, and then his hand on his fist to cool him down. And it works. Bjorn comes back, only then to get stabbed in the back by one of, Askeladd's other men who turned against him. But this is the point where Canute, he nuts up and says, look, both of you, here's what you're going to do. You're going to treat his wounds, and then we're going to go over to Thorkel, and we're going to get all the wounded on their side. And they're like, Prince, you're nuts. What the fuck? Why would you? But he's like, no, I'm going to show you a better way. I'm going to show you who to fight and when to fight. Become my vassals, he says.
Yeah, that's what a king is meant to give meaning to life and death, and show you, give meaning to your battles, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that is the point when Canute walks away and flicks his cloak out, and the whole thing from CSI plays, explosion in the background, lens flares, slow motion, you name it, the whole
just that
Michael Bay toolbox, it's going off.
That one song from the Berserk anime that sort of sounded like Eurythmics. They're like, whoa, yeah, that one. or just maybe Forces would have been more appropriate, but I don't think so. I think the more reflective one with the piano that always played whenever Guts was sitting on the roof pondering. That's the one that I felt when he swished back the cape. It's like,
yeah, you're right. God. You're right. But otherwise, that concludes the episode. So Thorfinn couldn't take Thorkel out despite his best efforts because, well, Thorkel is the Dark Souls boss, and he is but a tiny, tiny child. And Canute he is bitten from the fruit of knowledge. He's tasted the apple, but as we say, the thing about the apple is that it casts people out of Eden and into harsh reality. And
Thorkel
maybe that's not.
Sorry, go ahead. You go ahead.
No, go on. You were gonna say.
No, he looks like an early Dark Souls boss, the first or second, the trial boss. Be like, oh, this is just a regular looking. Oh no, I've died. Get him clad in armor, I reckon, and he would absolutely look like one. I mean, yes. To be fair to Thorfinn, he's doing the Dark Souls strategy. Just keep dodging until you lots of rolls.
Yes. Yeah, it works. So, okay. Let's talk about the episode proper and the themes and ideas here. I'm going to actually let you go for this one, Doc. What you got for me?
Oh, boy.
Because there's a lot. There's a
I
lot.
feel like there's almost too much. I mean, I've written down a lot, and boy, I'm not exactly sure. Not exactly sure what the best point is to begin. Gosh, I did think that it was very purposeful that they juxtaposed the two big questions that were asked this episode. The priest asking Canute what love is, and Thorkel asking Thorfinn, what does it mean to be a true warrior? Mm-hmm. Because I think in a very like weird sort of way that I would not have predicted, I think that the answer might kind of be the same. Like in
you
a
don't
way
have to kill.
that
You don't. Yeah, you have no enemies. Like that might be it. I mean, I believe that Andy in the chat mentioned that what the priest was trying to elaborate or relate to Canute was the fact that it's the kind of Christian ideal of love thy neighbor. It's not just familial love. It's about like religious and faith-based love, even amongst those who would hurt us, perhaps.
Right, that was Dana. Well, I mean,
sorry, my apologies. It was Dana. But...
So, I think that there's a long way to go from what the priest actually said. Like you have to give a lot of your own ideas and support and spin to what the priest is saying to get to like any kind of like sort of orthodox Christian idea of like love and things like that, because I think I think the fact that he is celebratory of death in terms of like death as kind of the fulfillment and completion of love. It's like the proof of the concept. You know what I mean? Like, you have died for whatever it was you were supposed to die for, and now you're like, no, it's okay. I get you.
You said you have died.
I get you. You have died. More Dark Souls, but it felt like he was sort of saying like, kind of God's creation as a whole is as an interwoven web of things that feed off of one another and interrelate to the point that they're indistinguishable one from the other, like a whole big ecosystem that can't live without a different part. Like that's all very beautiful, but man, human beings fuck it up, because we, back in the day in the garden, we chose knowledge of good and evil, or wisdom as they put it. We wanted that, and so we sinned, and we were kicked out of paradise, and now Canute thinks we've lost the capacity for love, and so we're sort of outside of whatever it is that the priest thinks is beautiful until we die. Then we kind of get sucked back into part of it. So it's almost, I feel like the idea that he's getting across of what love is almost like that which is not the human will, the individual human will. You have to be part of a big old giant glob system that is giving and receiving, and not, because if you have wants of your own, if you have desires of your own, that's going to be like outside of that. I think, because he condemns Ragnar's love and calls it discrimination. That's what people are going to do. And so people are not going to be part of kind of his ideal, his sort of, it's weird to call it love because it's like this whole metaphysical worldview that he just lumps under the word love, like interconnectedness. But anyway, getting back to my initial point, I'll talk more about all this as we go on, but like, I think death is like crucial to what it means to be a true warrior and what love means for the priest and for I don't know I don't know who really believes that about being a warrior, but I feel like um this is where I keep kind of thinking about the idea of Thor's dying not being a condemnation of Thor's or the way he thinks, because here we have the show saying like dying is actually like, again, beautiful. It's actually like sort of a fulfillment or a sign of like completeness of something. And I think death as a way to be part of the circle of life, for lack of a better term, like is like kind of like a core concept to being a true warrior, but also love in the eyes of the priest. And I thought that that was really interesting because I really didn't see that coming at all. I thought there were two very different questions, and I think it's a really interesting thing that they were juxtaposed in the way that they were by the director.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. I'm gonna bring up, by the way, that if there's something else that's worth mentioning here, it's about legacies coming back to haunt us and define our lives even before we get a chance to say otherwise. Because the comparison between Canute and Thorfinn is very clear. They both come from families where a lot is expected, not necessarily because of them personally, but because of their parents and their lineage. So you've got Thor's, for example, the Troll of Yom, and Thorkel clearly has high hopes for Thorfinn's knowledge on what it means to be a true warrior, even though, well, he knows the answer as Thor's would give it, but do you reckon Thorkel would be satisfied with that answer?
Probably not. I don't think so.
No,
I think he would just not get it, you know?
Like, nah, you're making it up. You misheard. You would believe him to be an ignorant child.
You
and
what,
Canute
me?
himself very clearly states, I didn't want to be born into the royal bloodline.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that I find this episode really neat because both of them are turning what has before been a burden to them into their own strength. Like, okay, Canute, like, now seizing the opportunity to become a king, like, to rule, to show like his leadership skills, to like give people direction, whereas previously he was way too timid and spineless to do anything like that. Like, he's taking this weakness that he perceived and now turning it into a strength to try and help people. And the fourth thing, like his own talents as a warrior, he again is continuing to use them for his own benefit here. Now, granted, whether or not they'll pay dividends with him finally be able to kill Askeladd off is a different matter entirely. But it's clear, that had he not learned those talents, been able to, get a grasp on him, he kind of speaks probably, grasp on him, he'd have been dead long ago after Thors had died. So for all that these things have been weaknesses for him and have burdened them in the past, they are, like, Canute has now been awoken to how it will drive him forward, whereas it is the thing that's kept Thorfinn alive for all this time.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, for sure. So, do you want to talk about love, Shadon? Sweet love. Without love, where would you be now? That's the question I have for you.
Oh, that's a
would you be
now?
Boy. So, like, I'll just be straight with you in terms of what I think. I think, like, this is like an interesting idea, but I think like it's a lot more of an Eastern religious idea than it is a Christian one, because I think.
Do you think that's bleeding through from the Kosuke?
I mean, possibly. I don't want to like impugn the research skills of him. You know what I mean? And be like he doesn't understand or anything like that. But and maybe he's doing it purposefully with the priest here.
I think there's inevitably going to be some bleed through of an author's worldviews into a work, no matter how much they try to divorce themselves from it. I mean, I've spoken about this on the podcast previously that, for all that you might want to have that legalese, thing of, the works, the opinions and viewpoints are not reflects the author, it's inevitable. We're born and bathed and like marinated in our culture of our home, our homelands, our hometowns for quite a long time, unless you're like traveling a lot as a very young person, like throughout different places. Odds are good you're probably gonna like be born with a certain worldview and certain biases that will bleed through into things that you create, even very mildly. It doesn't mean obviously that we're going to suddenly start seeing 4K wear samurai armor or anything like that, or anything stupid like that.
No. Let's not see that. Please.
No, let's not. We're not going to have like some nonsense like that. But I can see where you're coming from with that. That maybe there has been a bleed through that, kinda.
Well, it just feels like a really I've been using the word core a lot, so I'm trying to think of a different way, like a foundational point, a foundational kind of mode of being to the priest's idea of love is like dispassion. Very like, if I prefer one over the other, or if I have feelings for one over the other, I'm discriminating, right? Like I'm choosing one above others. I'm like doing violence to other people. That's a very Nietzschean idea. That's not a very Eastern idea, but like, yeah, just the idea that like the will, the kind of emotions and passions that we sort of associate with love, leading you down, like not being true, like maybe leading you down the bad path, or like not being true love, like love being really like something that is like for everyone equally and is being connected to everything in this way that has nothing to do with like caring about someone the way Ragnar cares about Canute, being willing to hurt other people for the sake of one, a person that you care about. So that seems like a very like Eastern idea, or more Eastern influenced, I think, than than how do I call it? Than like Christian ideas, or at least modern Western thinking. And I think like it is, it's an idea that at different times in my life I've been more receptive to than others, but like just hearing it now, like as a dad, right? Hearing that like what Ragnar has for Canute is not love. It just feels like insulting. You know what I mean?
I have to admit, I did feel a little bit like shit on this one. I mean, don't get me wrong. I am very much of the opinion that Canute was too sheltered. But I understand why Ragnar would have done that, given all the horrific shit that Canute saw, even as a young child. Like, the Red Wedding shit that was going on practically for a week in his royal court. Like, obviously, Ragnar's going to pull him in real close, get him out there, get him out in the field, see all of that. But a part of that reality is necessary for him to understand how dangerous the world he lives in. And indeed, I think that's part of like how he's come to recognize things as they are now. He's not an idiot. Yeah. He just feels powerless. But he's seen firsthand what betrayal's like, which is why I think he probably has a fairly good idea that Askeladd did kill Ragnar. Even if he has no actual evidence, he certainly has suspicions. One thing I'm going to mention is that I've talked before about the idea of these arbitrary laws, like to divide the various factions and peoples of Vinland Saga. Indeed, we have Danes working on the side of the English. We have a Welshman working with Danes, but in turn, he wants to off the Danes because they're all shit. And then, of course, we've got Thorfinn working under Askeladd and really wants to kill him. Like the allegiances, like if you wanted to like make one of those corkboard layouts, like and put all the things together, like it's a complete mess because they're all arbitrary lines that divide everyone from each other. Indeed, that happened just in the previous 2 episodes where Askeladd's men mutinied against him. Allegiances shift and change and are often defined by some of the most immaterial or nonsensical things imaginable. That's mentioned in this episode where he says, what are they fighting over? I don't know. They're just there loosing bodies and stuff like that. It's a bit daft, isn't it? This is why Bjorn, like, taking that mushroom and going insane isn't just to show him kicking ass. Like, it isn't just there simply for an action beat to, pad things out. It just goes to show, like, as a metaphor for how mindless people are becoming, wanting to commit violence against each other in this era for no reason. It is the ultimate extension of that idea of doing it for no reason, because he literally cannot tell friend from foe anymore. And that's what makes Canute's act more powerful at the end, because, like, I don't know if this is intentional direction wise, but what I noted is that when Bjorn, after he's been stabbed again, being turned into his own version of pop up pirate at this point, um, and the other guy whose name eludes me, one of the mutineers from Askeladd's group, they're framed in the same shot. And as the conversation progresses, where Canute is telling them what to do, they change from enemies, at least as we perceive it, to allies. And there's no sudden shift in the camera angle on that. It just happens through the dialogue. It just goes to show how quickly things can change depending on the needs and wants of the moment and the orders that you're given. And I really, really enjoyed that, just as a point that, you know, this whole thing, war is stupid and pointless because it's defined along arbitrary lines for often the most petty and pointless of reasons. And it can just quite simply undone like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just by having someone say, you know, give them knocking their heads together, literally.
No, for sure. Like that was such a cool. So I have a lot to say before I get to because I want to talk about that moment. So here's where I think another point where like the priest's ideas are out of step with a kind of orthodox understanding, because like he doesn't really talk about like Christ being like part of the picture at all. And I think that is what sort of, because Christ is like left out of the picture of love, and the priest just really talks about this like distant sort of God who has these lofty expectations of people that people can never meet. It kind of leads Canute to abandon God and like lose his faith on the spot because he feels he's achieved this enlightenment, right? So he's like, the priest he feels like they've come to this understanding, Canute and the priest, that like, well, love is being a dispassionate part of the web of the universe and giving and receiving freely and not really like preferring one over the other. So not like expressing these kind of fatherly feelings of love that like Ragnar had. That's just misguided. But people can't do it anymore. We've lost the ability to do it, but God still expects us to do it. And there's one point in the Canute is like, God is the idea for us to like just to be tested our whole lives and is the best we can do just to endure it, right? Like there's no salvation through trials. Like we'll never be able to like love because we've lost that. And I think and to like so far as that goes, that's accurate by and large in like as far as the Christian dogma goes. But like Christ is like the restorative part of that, and like, you know, human beings are never able to love everyone in this way that they talk about, that the priest talks about. Like, but you know, God can and Christ
there's
can.
Always such headspace. Yeah, there's always such headspace your regular person has to be able to.
I mean, it's just impossible.
Not to mention that we often get very, you know, angry or like, you know, offended when love is not singular on a one-to-one basis. I mean, that's, you know, there are people out there, you know, who have relationships which are open or biamorous or polyamorous, if you want to call it. Yeah. But I think for a lot of people, for them, like, you know, if they found out that, oh yeah, I am romantically involved in someone else and you as well, and that's okay because I'm totally able to manage that equally. I promise you that. Words would be had.
Yeah.
But that's not even just the case with romantically as well. Like, I think that, you know, if you, like, let's say, just give a hypothetical here. Let's say you have a family and the family goes through a divorce, and then the father then, you know, or the mother, they start another family. And then things stabilize and things become amicable again with them in the previous house. So you got two families with one parent sharing like a common ancestry or common relation with both. Do you think that the various members of that family would perceive the love to be equal, even if it was?
I mean, there's a chance, I guess, right?
There's a chance, I'm sure, but I would say it's difficult.
Yeah,
it's not easy for us to, you know, love everyone equally. And then, of course, there are just a simple case like, oh, you know, I see so much awful shit out in the world every single day.
Yeah.
How could I, in theory, love everyone equally when I know there are some horrific people out there?
Yeah, I mean,
that's probably what's broken
exactly
so much.
Yes, and like like we're not gods, right? But like we're,
Well, speak for yourself.
well, according to the Bible, we'll say, and
bow before me.
Christian tradition, we're made in
Mortal.
the image of God, and that's why like we can love people.
I know I was.
To begin with. Hey-o.
Sorry, I'm joking.
No, it's good. We're made in the image of God, but we're not God, so we don't have that kind of like bandwidth, that kind of love capacity.
Are you saying that God has enough bandwidth to run Stadia?
God's got the best. Yes, God has been on Stadia for years. He's
Poor him.
He's playing games lag free.
Bullshit. not even God can make Stadia lag free.
But
just gave my topical swipe in there. Please continue.
There's this like incredible passage in it's probably still my favorite book if I had to rank books, The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky, where they're at this monastery and people are coming to talk to this priest there, this monk guy, and this guy comes up and he's talking about how much he loves mankind. I'm just like, God, I love mankind so much. I would die for human beings. Like,
I see this ending well.
Mankind is so just like it's the best. I have so much love for it. And then like the priest starts to ask him questions about individual people in his life, and he's like, "Oh, I hate Mrs. Smith. Like, what a vile creature." You know what I mean? So like, I think it's like this great illustration of like conceptually we have the capacity to think about and care about like large groups, but like we struggle to like love in a. I mean, I don't think we can love in a perfect way, but we struggle to love, period. Like these individual people that are like, warts and all, they're people that fuck up and make mistakes. And they all have wills of their own, and they're all living outside of this fucking perfect like web of balance and glory that this beauty that the priest is sort of holds up as this ideal that we're supposed to aspire to. And, without any help in getting there, it's no wonder that Canute is just like, you know what? God, fuck this. Like, I'm out. Like, if this is what you want us to do, like, it's sort of just like Sisyphus, right? We're always pushing the rock up the hill and getting it rolled on. And we have no hope of success. And then that incredible moment he has with Bjorn, I feel like I feel like the priest when I was watching it. I was like, this is sort of like what God is supposed to be doing, but incarnate in human beings.
The healing touch, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing, it's not just that as well, but like
it's like heaven come to earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Bjorn is literally mindless. He's turned into a wild beast at that point. There's no distinction between friend and foe from that, but he's probably not even thinking straight. Like if you, I imagine if they get through this, like Asgard will say to him, "So what was that trip like, Bjorn?" And he'll go, "I don't know. Just blur." I ain't got a clue.
It was pretty radical, man. Yeah.
I mean, I have to say, like, when Canute was holding, Bjorn's face, I just have his face turn to the camera and say, "Have you had a problem with mushrooms? If so, talk to Canute." Free dial this number now for confidential advice from an ancient Viking prince. But no, the reason I bring that up though is because, like, that is the other thing that God does, which is to give people direction. And so, given that his direction has failed or been ignored by so many people, Canute's like substituting a sense of direction now.
It's impossible, I think, is Canute's supposition. Like, we have this roadmap from him, but who cares? We might as well ignore it because no one can achieve it.
Exactly. So I love all of this like stuff that's going on here. The only thing is though, is that Canute, like up until this point, has been like very placid, like very nice, like he's been chill, like he's been very pleasant, very lovely. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't have been hardened a little bit. I'm at the middle ground in which people should be able to be kindly and caring and affable and all that, but you need to be ready to nut up and defend yourself if necessary. But I'm wondering if he's been pushed too far.
Ragnar was not a perfect parent, unless sure.
No,
we could go there.
he was certainly not. But he was a perfect. I mean, like he in some way also mirrors Thor's, as we learn, because Thor simply tried to shelter Thorfinn from, getting involved in all this stupid war nonsense that was filling his head, of all those like play battles that they had. But, well, the reality that he didn't prepare Thorfinn for was that, war isn't fair, war isn't, glorious, and it certainly didn't, it doesn't help anyone, but you need to be ready for it, not to wage it, but to defend yourself from it.
Totally.
And that's where Thor's kind of fell short, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And same with Ragnar, like he just overcompensated massively, which led to a prince who was, scared of being killed, too scared to do anything. Like it didn't really solve the problem. He was still deeply afraid, just of a different thing.
Yeah. Andy in chat was talking earlier about that scene when sort of the priest and Canute are talking, and like Bjorn is just raging in the background, just going ham, like just annihilating people. And they have like a really cool part of their talk then. When basically I feel like Canute sort of says, like, when he holds up the snow and he's like, this is love, the sun is love. And then he looks out and he's just like, well, everyone is just Bjorn underneath. Like, really, when you get down to it.
You could also argue that him looking at the snow and saying this is love, like, just transient and, like, it's temporary. Because snow doesn't last forever unless you're, like, in a really cold part of the world, obviously. But it will eventually melt and fade away.
Well, but he also says the sun, which I guess also will fade away one day.
It sets, it's
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, it's so I think that's right though.
It sounds like the last relationship I had.
Hey-o. No, I think that's right. Well, like the universe is just like a big collection of things that burn bright and go out, and while they're around, they exist symbiotically with all these other things that are coming into being and going away. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it's very beautiful. It's very sort of molecular. Molecular is not the right word because that
granular.
That how do I say? Connotes a kind of isolation one from another, and everything is really connected. It's very just sort of beautiful and pristine and everything, but like you just look at life and there's just so much chaos that it's like it's hard to like fit all of that into like human beings in that view of the world really are these like outcasts. And again, like if that is the conclusion you come to, then I can totally see Canute wanting to like leave it behind, right? And saying like, well, enough of like this treadmill of awful. There's no love from on high in the world. And credit to Ragnar, because it really is Ragnar who, in a very indirect way, got him on the, like, his last act was this like, this act of love toward Canute, and Canute was like, oh, I love him so much. By the way, I teared up when he was like, I wish you were my dad. That was like, that fucking killed me, dude.
I know it.
I
mean, it's easy for me like to say, he is his dad, but he doesn't feel like the same in sense, because we'll obviously live in a time where biology isn't quite as emphasized as the link between family members, and there's more about the actual connections and relationships that we have. But for Canute, well, I mean, obviously he lived in a time when it was definitely much more lean towards like the ancestry and heritage side of things. That's been a big thing for a lot of the characters in this show, Askeladd included, come to think of it. But on top of that as well, like his ancestry, like he's of royal lineage. That's a responsibility and expectation that gets put on him from the moment he was born.
Yeah.
And he never had a choice in the matter.
No.
So, I mean, indeed, that actually makes me think of Thorfinn as well. Like, Thorfinn, do you reckon he would have been so willing to kill Askeladd if his father was just never been a great warrior?
Oh, yeah, probably not.
Because I think part of the reason that he's so deeply offended by Askeladd's murderous father, apart from the obvious patricide element,
Right,
is that
right.
he had believed all his life this father was an incredible warrior, and then he just got punked by some pirate.
Yeah.
But it's bullshit. It cheated, and
No,
that's why
right.
that's why the duel is important, because he needs to show that his lineage is,
Yeah.
not as weak sauce, not as
Yeah.
glass jawed as he believes it was.
Yeah,
even though it had nothing to do with that.
He cared about his dad. He loved his dad, but also his dad like stands for this sort of like order that he really did believe in and can't quite let go of. Wanting to prove true, you know what I mean?
Maybe that's why Canute has now exceeded for in terms of development. Canute has left behind the belief system guide him all this time that he found insufficient. And obviously, Thorfinn is not a religious character that I know of anyway.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, he has his religion of sorts, his honor, which is, I will kill Askeladd in a duel. I will not kill him in his sleep. I will not poison his food. I will not push him off this cliff as much as I would like to. I will do it honorably for the sake of maintaining this sense of like familial dignity.
Can you imagine if Askeladd was part of the conversation with the priest and Canute? He'd probably just be like, Your Highness, what the fuck?
If you're not, can you pass me your son? I'm going to look after him for a bit. And he just drinks all the booze.
I need to borrow your kid.
I mean, I've been looking after this one for a while. It's great. I've got this covered.
Yeah. But man, I just that moment when Canute looked into the non-eyes of Bjorn, right? The pupilless eyes, and stopped him, even when he
brought
was
his humanity back.
Totally, because he sees this guy, right, and who's gone quote unquote insane. And he's like, insane, like, who among us is sane in this world? Like, we're all like this, really. I mean, in terms of, like, if Priest, you're right, and you have Snow, like, and the universe, and then over here us, like, we are really just all like Bjorn, like, we're incapable of being part of this incredible web.
I know I am if I've had one too many tequilas on a night out.
You're right.
That's when my eyes white over and I just start.
And he just talks to him, and like, puts his hand on his cheek, and like hugs him. And to me, again, I think this just feels like heaven becoming incarnate on earth, and like he's taken the role of God. Like I said, he's like, I'm going to give your lives meaning, because God was supposed to do that. Right?
Yeah.
He's supposed
to be fair, though, God has often acted through agents on Earth.
Yes.
So not unheard of. I'm going to point out, by the way, Andy's comment in the chat, it's so true. That did indeed make me go, no, I would believe that. Which is when the priest dropped his son. Like, don't drop your son. He did.
He just dropped him. Just like, Jack, child abuse.
Oh no,
man. And like, to me, that act was a lot more in line with what I feel like, ironically enough, what I feel like love is, or what it means to me personally. And that was going to be my question to you. Like, there's been like so much like theorizing and like metaphysical discussions of like what love is, and I don't know, like, what
are you going to lay the big one on me?
Yeah, like what do you think, or if you don't feel comfortable talking about what you, I mean, like, how close is the priest? How close is Canute? Like, what do you think about all this? Like, just setting the show aside, like, what you think is IRL in actuality, love.
Oh boy.
Do you want me to answer first to give you time to think?
Yes, please. Give me some time to just engage that in my meat space, in my brain noggin spot, whatever you want to call it.
Sure. And it doesn't have to be anything complete, because what I have to say isn't by any means thorough or complete, but just that I think what Canute did, again, is so much more kind of what I think it is, because I tend to believe that, like, actual love is not a safe bet. There's risk involved. There is discrimination, right? There is preference. There is
preference treatment, yeah.
There's this. I think the kind of the core for me is like decision, is commitment. I think it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with feelings that you feel for a person or a group. I think those are a byproduct and do often accompany, and those can be mistaken for love. But I think the decision that, and Canute makes a decision, like he steps out irrationally. I don't think love is a particularly rational sort of thing. He makes this commitment and he reaches out.
Bjorn doesn't smush his face into muscle pulp.
Yeah, he like reaches out to this other person who, I mean, is a stranger to him, is going bonkers and everything. But he hugs him, and there's no expectation on his part that really it could go either way. He could die. There's so much risk involved. But he's made this commitment, right?
A selfless act.
Yeah. And in turn, I think what will happen is I think if Bjorn lives, he will become his vassal because of that act. At least the parts that he witnessed can remember. So yeah, it's action, right? Like he makes his commitment and then he pushes forward with this risky action on his part, and he's willing to take whatever consequences may come. He's not hedging his bets here. And he stays the course with it. And so I think, like, it's not a perfect analogy, but in some ways it's kind of a encapsulation or microcosm of a lot of the moving parts and machinations that I think are what love is, beyond just like some warm fuzzies. Commitment, irrational, risky, an act of faith, a leap. It's a decision that it may have accompanying feelings. Then they may come and they may go and they may return. They may be ever present. Who knows? But it's the underlying commitment that I think is the thing.
I would agree with all that. Academically, because I haven't experienced much of it myself in my life in terms of like giving it out or necessarily receiving it. Don't worry, don't crank those tears out, folks. It's all good. But
we all love you, though. Truly. Aww. Fuck the priest. We all love you. I don't care what it
priest. is that the debut single for our
priest? Fuck the priest.
Oh my god. I think that for me, love is also a kind of nurturing thing. It's like where you cultivate a feeling inside of you for someone else or something even. And it's not just a case of letting it sit there, but you actively attend to it. You actively, nurture it, grow it, with, the right ingredients and the right conditions, of course. Unfortunately, sometimes that can go too far without the consent of another, or to the point where your own behavior becomes self-harmful. Even if you're, say, like, take waifus, for example. I know I'm going there.
No, it's okay. That's legitimate.
But I'm not criticizing the concepts of people who have that. I mean, we get what comfort we can in this world. If there isn't someone out there necessarily, I can understand that. But I also will say that there are people out there who go so far on that as to shut themselves off from genuine human connection. I mean, come on, this is what the film Her was about. So there's that. But I think it's the fact that there's not necessarily a defined end to your, feelings towards someone or something, and that you continue to grow and cultivate it, and that's the ongoing process. Whereas I feel like, with with things outside of love, there's a kind of definitive end point, but you want to keep going. You want to see where it ends, which it may never. You may end up, never getting to the end of that road, which is a good thing, because it's an ongoing journey. But I again think that also ties back into the idea of like cultivating, nurturing, and protecting. And indeed, that was the pitfall that both Thors and Ragnar fell into, which was that they went too far. their love ultimately for their children,
Hmm.
um, ultimately did not give them the the experience, the knowledge, the worldviews they needed in life. Admirable. I mean, that's hubris for you, isn't it? You know, they had the best of intentions in how they both raised them, and their intentions were indeed reactions to their own lived experiences. Thor's, not wanting his son to go in his own footsteps, becoming someone who was just there getting involved in mindless slaughter. Irony of which is that's exactly
Mm-hmm.
what happened. Whoops.
Ow.
Uh,
Ow.
yeah, it's true though.
Yeah.
And in the case of Canute, all the horrible shit that was happening because his actual father didn't love him, Ragnar responded by massively overdoing it
Hmm.
and sheltered him so much that he wasn't ready for the world ahead. And it then took Ragnar's actual death to bring him back down and have him be ready for the challenges that were ahead of him, rather than being someone who never spoke a single word to another person.
Yeah. So, like, when you're a dad, you think preparing your kid for their the future, and not just in a nebulous way, but in a real, like, here is like what you need to do to navigate the world that you're going to live in, is a huge part of the responsibility. This is what you're arguing. Do you think then it's incumbent on dads, like kind of part of the responsibility is to, like, to understand not just the way the world is, but the way that the world is evolving, to, like, because I mean, for Ragnar, it's really easy to be like, the dude did not raise a jarl, like, he raised a farmer's kid. Like, it's so, and it's right there. He knew what he was supposed to do, but he didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to Thor's, like, I mean, how much blame do you want to assign him for, like, I don't know, like, maybe he really believed that his kid would just get to live a life in this village. You know what I mean? And he's, like, raising him to, like, be in that quiet little village and not to engage with, the king of the Danes and stuff like that, because he doesn't believe he will.
I don't put all of the blame at Thor's feet on this one. Because, I mean, he obviously came there as a choice to try and get away from all of that. But I do think he was a bit naive to expect it would ever truly go away. And even then, it still put,
I
his
agree with that.
family in a desolate wasteland to live in, as opposed to, somewhere better.
Yeah.
And, that's maybe part of the choice. Like, you can't change this. You may have to go elsewhere, perhaps. Understandable. A lot of people do that. The real blame, of course, lies with the people who are shit on him and, all the stuff's been forced on Canute, all that other stuff that's been going on. Like, they're the external forces they're acting on. But at the same time, like, the possibility should have. I mean, Thor's had some idea of the possibility going back. He still had his weapons in his arms.
Yeah.
He just, he had an understanding, I think, but he didn't then share that understanding for him. I think he was fair to, like, try and explain to him enemy. That's fine. I think that's a perfectly fine philosophy. But the reality is that there are people out there who will be your enemies, whether you like it or not.
Right.
And that's something you have to be ready for.
Yeah, and I mean, there, he Thor's, like, Thor's is good about, like, sharing these, like, nuggets of wisdom that are really cryptic, and that are, like, after, like, a lot of struggle and thinking about it, you might be like, okay, Dad, I see what you mean, and I see, like, the ultimate truth in it, even where other people might think it's wrong or contradictory. But when you have, like, a little kid, like, you can't just give them the like, prophetic nugget of wisdom,
Yeah.
You gotta be able to, like, explain what it means a little bit. But I guess,
Yeah,
to
you
be
have to go
fair,
through
he
the
didn't think he
activities.
was going to go out and die soon. But no, he
also
sort of
didn't
did.
But he also didn't think that Thorfinn was going to end up on the same boat he sailed away, remember?
I know. That's so true. Yes, exactly, exactly. Um, so now switching gears a little bit. But stop me if I can't switch gears because it just feels like we've talked about what we were going to talk about regarding that. Um, so now Canute feels like he's going to try to create Vinland, right?
Ooh.
The real place that that Thor's has talked about, that Thorfinn has dreamed about.
I don't think Vinland in name, but certainly
Yeah,
he's got
but
his own
concept,
idea.
right?
Yeah, he's certainly got his idea of what next for the men in front of him, like, what they need, to try and bring them together. So they're not fighting these pointless, stupid wars over perceived slights or, what is essentially like a nation on nation, like, street brawl. Someone bumps into you and goes, "You fucking what, mate?" Like that kind of thing.
It really
That's all
does.
it really is. It's very petty.
Yes, and I think it's really easy to well, here I'll speculate for a minute. It's easy to like get behind that idea, but I feel like something is hardened within Canute to the point that and it happens so fast, right? But I think it's only going to like continue to calcify. And I think it's going to be one of those deals where like if we did a time skip to like 20 years from now, he'll rule a quote unquote peaceful kingdom, right? Where there won't be any war, but like
But at what cost?
Exactly. There'll be like mad oppression.
Yeah.
And people will just be wiped out wholesale for trying to start shit instead of like trying to like have negotiations and like broker deals and like manage loss of life. It's like, no, we must have like the perfect place, and this element needs to be squashed.
if he is indeed a parallel to Thorfinn's becoming what his father ultimately wanted him to not become, then that makes perfect sense. Because Ragnar certainly didn't want Canute to become like his actual father. But funny how things, come around again.
I know.
I mean, I've said this before, like, is it deterministic? Are we fated to have this happen, especially based on, our predecessors, like father, like son? Or do we truly have free will in this?
It all comes back to Berserk, Shadon. Do you
It
remember
all
what
comes back to Berserk!
Do you remember what the catch said at the beginning of the Berserk anime?
Remind me.
Because I don't. Let me Google it. Let's see. Berserk anime preface. What was it? It was like talked about like the Wheel of Fate or whatever. I don't. Fuck, man. I don't have it in front of me, but every single episode it was like, is mankind a being of free will, or are we all at the mercy of the cruel Wheel of Fate? Sorry, that was a little Yoda.
I don't know why, but when you said that, like the Wheel of Fortune theme, like I played. Sorry, I'll stop now. But yeah, like that's where the two characters are paralleled in that they have become like the people that their fathers also not want to be.
How crazy, man! And it's played out in this really elaborate way where it doesn't really seem too hacky or too simple. It's like there's so many factors, and you can but you can still see how they got there. And I love how they're both struggling with the burden of legacy. I think that's a really smart parallel that you've seen, and the show is really like just so smart about. Like,
I'm gonna make a criticism here though. I know this is gonna sound like quite engaged with this episode, but I think that I've actually finally hit on what my big problem with the show has been up until this point. With its pacing. Big problem, quote unquote. It's not really a big problem. But here's the thing.
Problem. Introducing our new segment. Big problems. Big problems.
So, I'm going to pitch an idea to you.
Okay.
What if Vinland Saga were rewritten so that Canute was introduced in the very first episode, not in obviously the same place as Thorfinn, but that their lives were running parallel to each other as the episodes go on, rather than appearing much later?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it could be good or bad, right? depending on how they view it.
Well, here's the thing, right? I think my problem initially was the show pitched it for, which it isn't.
Right.
It's got bigger ideas and bigger aspirations than that, which is fine in of itself, but it feels to me like an unusual contrast, like to go from that kind of very specific, this is this kid and we're focused on him, to everything else that's happened. And then Canute comes in like, okay, who's this late player? And now obviously Canute's
a late player.
yeah. Who's this late addition to the team? But Canute,
another warrior has challenged you.
Yep. But Canute comes in now and is actually one of the most fascinating show. But part of me thinks that maybe the show or the material would have been better served if Canute was a presence in the show's narrative. Not, I'm talking Thorfinn's life, of course, until about the point where they do actually meet. But if we had been introduced to him much, much earlier, and we could see the parallels between their lives developed throughout the entirety of the show's run, or the material's run for that matter, rather than him just coming in as an addition to complement what we already have.
Yeah, I guess for the show itself, it would be cool. Maybe like that wouldn't make sense given where the manga goes, but I like that for the adaptation. I think that would be smart.
I think that would also then assuage my, it's Thorfinn's story, but suddenly he's not important or relevant in it, which I understand that what they're going for with certain bits here and there, and certainly I'm not devaluing the episodes that we talked about previously, but I think it would then, make it clear that, no, it's not just his story. It's, here's this peasant kid, and here's this prince, and for all that they have the differences in station, they are still victims of the same, all-consuming cycle of hatred and violence that is the hallmark of this era. It doesn't matter who you are. Like, this whole phenomenon doesn't give a shit what family you were born into. It doesn't care how old you are. It doesn't care about any facet of your life or, what makes you you. You can still be affected by it. It's something that gets everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the show would have been more balanced as a result had that been a thing. Now, that's not to say it's bad. I still think it's a great show, don't get me wrong. But I do think that
just admit you hate it. Sorry. If you don't love it, you're a hater, Shadon. Don't you know how this works? This is
don't make me put you on the penalty cart back there where you just sit there and think about your that one. Where you think about your crimes for a little bit. So no, I just think it could have been done perhaps better, but that's just my opinion. Don't take it as gospel. I could very well be talking out my ass. So yeah.
I kind of like it though for the show. I think for the adaptation, I think it would have been a strong, bold move, and would have framed it, like you're saying, in a way that didn't kind of throw us off after the first 6 episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, this would also make Floki him.
The Viking DJ, yeah, in the mix, Floki.
Floki is finally back in the house. God. He's mixing things up all right with assassination.
The opener for Pete Tong. It's Floki.
Oh my God. Anyway, I'm all talked out on this episode. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Well, I do think that Thorkel showed a remarkable moment of maturity.
Unusual for him, I know.
I thought that was really fascinating when he and Thorfinn stopped dueling, and he was like, well, you're really strong and quick, but your technique, like something about your swordsmanship is lacking. And Thorfinn is all like, well, then how come I've cut you up, huh, buddy? And Thorkel's like, well, there's something imperfect about me as a warrior also, and I thought that I would find it in you because you're Thor's kid. I just thought, like,
actually, you're right, yeah.
A remarkable moment of self-reflection on his part, just be like, hey, I'm an imperfect warrior. There's something missing for me.
Don't forget that scene where, like, Thorfinn delivers the ice burn of, if I were holding, I can't hold Thor's hold back. Oh, sorry, if I didn't hold back, there'd be nothing left to talk about.
That was so good.
I was like, ha! And then Thorkel's like, No, that was a pretty sick burn, actually.
he just like
Shut-
kills that one guy. It's like, was that funny? Did you find that funny? I didn't find it funny.
He was turning into Joe Pesci from Goodfellas.
Oh no, you've killed me. You can't do that when the sick has me. But yeah, he really was.
You think that's funny? That's my bad Joe Pesci impression.
I'm a funny guy. Am I like a clown to you?
Exactly.
Oh.
So yeah, no.
Good.
Like, for all that Farkel is a mass murdering death machine, got the general, emotional and intellectual like status of an 8-year-old, because he's very childlike. Like, he does indeed have his moments. He recognizes that Oz is stronger than him, for example, and he gives him those things. But again, arbitrary lines. Farkel and Thorfinn shouldn't be fighting. Literally, Farkel, if he wasn't so obsessed with warfare, he would go, "You do realize, or maybe you didn't know that I existed, but I'm technically your granduncle. We're family. I am your mother's uncle. How did you get here? Why are you here? What's going on?" Like, I think that Farkel would probably just, he would just be like, oh, was it him? This prick here. Did this prick kill Thors? How did he do it?
I know.
Are you telling me this prick here killed the greatest warrior of our age by having him ganked by archers in a thing? And then he'd probably turn Askeladd into filet mignon.
He would annihilate him immediately.
He would annihilate him.
Like,
and they'd be like,
this
right.
old bastard kills the
Right. Yeah, and then he would be like, okay, I'll take you back to your family, but I'm going right back to the warfare.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen. What should be a moment where the where technically this is one of Thorfinn's outs, never comes up, because the lines from which they are opposed to each other, just drawn across maps and nations and all that, and forces, completely arbitrary, to the point where it will even make family turn on each other.
Until now,
and enjoy it.
Canute will rise to power and tear it all up and make a new thing. So this is actually something I love, is because now that Canute has made this turn, and it feels like things are winding down with Thorfinn and Askeladd, and Thorkel here. I really feel like kind of anything, I don't know where the show is going to go from here. And that's exciting. Like, the possibilities, right, are many.
I'm gonna make a cast iron prediction here.
Okay.
I think that when Askeladd finally bites it, I think that Thorfinn is gonna get nothing out of it.
Oh no, it's gonna be a bitter sour drink for sure.
Like, oh, that's it. Oh, okay.
I feel nothing. Yeah.
It was completely and utterly pointless in the end.
And Canute is going to be right there to be like, of course it was. Of course these battles are meaningless.
It's just pat him on the head very, very gently, very.
Suddenly, Canute is equipped to lead everyone. He's like, I mean, seriously, it is a miracle. How he's. I mean,
hey, sometimes an act of God can really make someone into the swinging dick of the place.
Just a divine revelation. In that dream and his waking up, it's incredible. I'm so excited for this character now. God, I really, really want to see. I just want the Game of Thrones Canute, that. I'm okay leaving Thorfinn and everything for a while and just be let's see how Canute does at court. Can we see him roast this other brother of his and just, I don't know, have him secretly murdered or whatever, or disgrace him before everyone? Can we get that? Mm-hmm. I want strong. I want his dad to be blah blah blah, no, blah blah blah, weak and spineless. Who are you? I hate you. A demon has possessed my son.
What if he was to cut a deal with Farkel to have Farkel kill his brother for him?
I'm into
because Farkel probably could do it. I mean, Thorkel is like,
He can do anything.
Yeah,
Punter of humans. Uppercutter of horses.
I mean, if you told me there was a scene later in this manga where, Thorfinn finally says his goodbyes to Thorkel, and Thorkel just, Thorkel, and he just disappears into the air, I would totally believe it.
If you just cut to like a shot of Thorkel on the moon.
Is this gonna start
I'm okay
turning
with
into
it.
like the revived version of Chuck Norris jokes?
Yeah, probably.
We're
That's
just
it's
Thorkel
accurate.
instead.
Yeah, I would not be opposed to that. Well,
Right, I think we have one Patreon question, by the way, so let's get that.
Okay.
If you're interested, by the way, in getting in some specific questions to us about this, plenty of other wonderful perks, do feel free to check out patreon.com/Warui Deshou and find all of our benefits and perks on there. This will allow you to ask questions about Vinland Saga. You can get in on Kabuchiko Sherlock as well, get requests in for us to cover specific shows, all of the good shit. TM. Trademark.
That's
in
right.
America. So, this one comes from, let's see. This one comes from our good old friend Blinkaji. Blinkaji asks, what did you guys think about the format of this episode, and how did Knut's revelations about love and human nature work when shown parallel to Thorfinn and Thorkel's duel? So let's talk about the parallel specifically, I suppose, then.
Yeah, I think we might have touched on the last part of that question already in our discussion. But so how do I feel about... can you restate the question again? How do we feel about the parallels?
How did Knut's revelations about love and human nature work when shown parallel to Thorfinn and Thorkel's duel?
I think that... Well, I mentioned that I liked the scenes being juxtaposed together because I think the questions that were being asked, interestingly enough, gestured toward the same or similar answers about death. And I think, if you are looking at the duel, if you were looking at Bjorn raging around in light of what the conclusions are that Canute comes to via the priest about love and about our inability to obtain it because we've been cast out of paradise. I think the duel is a good illustration of that because, like you said, you have this this duel going on, and ultimately, what is it for, really? You know what I mean? What?
Yeah.
They're all
It's so Thorfinn has the right to kill a dude who he may not be able to kill anyway, because Askeladd was turned into a pincushion. The odds are good, especially given the time this is in, as I've said before, that if he lives, his fighting days are done.
Mm-hmm.
So even if he survives the entire show's run, the odds are possible that he will never fight again, and therefore can't do this duel, and therefore Thorfinn's sense of honor, it did nothing for him. It did nothing for him, just as it did nothing for his father. Funny how that works. Ho ho.
Ho 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 ho. But Andy talks about when, Canute asks, why is there no love in the hearts of men? Why is there no love in the world? There's a montage of Thorkel's men looting, pillaging dead bodies of Askeladd's men. And, I think that's not very. It's not very subtle, but it's effective, right? Of kind of underscoring the point. And
it's all they've ever known. That's the thing, though. If they're non-religious people going around and all they've ever known is an age of warfare, that is their perspective. That is just the norm. It is the status quo.
It's this. Yeah. Well, what's the difference between that and the fucking glorified image of the bird picking flesh off the skeleton? It's the same thing.
Yeah, we're animals,
right? So I think that might undercut it a little bit. That might be what you're saying, but I think the big thrust, the idea,
Whoa, don't be getting a big thrusting on this
the
topic.
big thrust.
You previously had marked this, our channel as not okay for kids.
That's
So
right.
I'm glad you got in early.
That's right. The big thrust. The central idea, I think, was that like love, as the priest and Canute have conceived it, is idyllic and unbroken, and a web of interconnecting, gracious, beautiful creation, giving, receiving, fully participating in this great community, not really having any selfish or personal desire, but freely giving of yourself and freely being given to by these other selfless creatures. It's all a big, wonderful cycle in nature and universe and yada yada. And then you have human beings that are these violent, selfish creatures that are just doing everything they can, seemingly, to fuck up the cycle, and the web, rather, because we've been cast out from paradise. And I think that
Is that possibly what happened to Thors? He was certainly cast out from paradise in a sense, given he had to live on a frozen wasteland.
Well, maybe that was the paradise.
For gaining the knowledge, of how things really are.
Oh, right. Interesting.
People create their own kingdoms after all, and they cast people out from.
I have to think about that some more.
I've only just really kind of pulled that out of thin air, so yeah, let's let that sit for a bit.
Well, what I was going to say is that there's I think an equally effective juxtaposition or single image of the kind of heady, abstract, philosophical discussion that the priest and Canute are having in the foreground, when in the background there's mass murder occurring.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the fucking metaphysical system and the divine beauty of creation. And then, well, here is humanity just shitting the bed everywhere.
It needs to have an amusing moment where you just had Bjorn doing the windmill thing. If you get hit, but he might have been too tanked up on mushrooms to be able to do that.
Oh my gosh. And what was the second part of the question?
The second part, according to my notes here,
Blinkipoo. What have you asked?
It was how did Canute's revelations about love when shown parallel to Thorfinn and Thorkel's duel? Blinkaji was also asking about the format of this episode.
Oh, yes. I liked it. I thought all the juxtapositions were great.
Yeah. Actually, that reminds me of a point I did not get, which is the idea that death perfects a person.
Yeah.
I have a hard disagree on that.
Big time.
Because the episode very clearly visually shows the silhouette of Thorfinn there. As in, it's not necessarily that death has perfected Thors, but rather it has perfected Thorfinn by, waking him up to the world, as it were. See also with Canute and Ragnar's death. But here's the thing. Both of them have suffered greatly for it, and both of them have, it's not a life that I would wish on either of them. So I have a hard disagree on that. It's all very well and easy to say that death perfects a person as in the person who has died, because it leaves, them as a set quantity that you can look back on.
They can't do any bad things anymore, Shadon.
Yeah,
they
dead.
can't steal anymore. Yeah.
But he's completely forgetting how it then, affects other people. And I think that maybe even his words don't necessarily, the show visually shows us that silhouette, but I don't think he's referring to Thorfinn.
No.
I don't think he realized it, but we can infer that. And that I find really fascinating, because he's right in one sense, but he's completely wrong in the other, as evidenced by the two main characters, one of which is the one he's fucking speaking to.
Yeah.
Death perfects a person. No, it really doesn't. It can, like I say, it can give people release. It can get let people out of their suffering, or just of old age, all sorts of things. There can be abuse in it. Don't get me wrong. But death, does not perfect the living. That's the difference. Death perfects the dead, you know?
Well, for him,
or the dying, rather.
well, for him, that there's not a hard, like, death doesn't just mean non-existence. You know what I mean? It's just a veil. You just cross over to the next part of your journey. So you are perfected or whatever. This is why, yeah, I don't like it either. I mean, like, because when you die, Shadon, you're perfected, because then you don't really have an individual will anymore that can affect the world and hurt other people and like want things and prefer people over other people and hurt people. You become part, like a dispassionate, part of your corpse is just participating in nature, becoming the soil that feeds the trees and the bird and all this other bullshit that really just, I know a lot of people, I shouldn't say that, a lot of people really find comfort in that and like a sort of deep contentment with that idea. And I do, like, I don't want to take that away from anybody. Me personally, I don't get those feelings when I think about that idea.
Why not both?
I think
why not? Hey, he's one with nature and all that. At the same time, it's not good for us that he's passed away early. Like at this point, it's like left quite the mark on us. I mean,
and this is part of why I think like that it's that the what is a great warrior and what does it mean to be loved are moving toward the same place, because like being a great warrior and going to Valhalla, right? Like they're sort of intertwined, right? If you're a great warrior, you die in battle because you're fully committed to your cause. And you go to Valhalla. And then what is love? Well, look, you're perfected in death. And you're part of the universe. You're part of the big webby lines.
About the trees and shit, bro. Like,
yeah.
No, I think that I think the priest is half right, but then again, I think that's been the message of Saga for a lot of its characters in authority. They are half right. Dana mentions that maybe the priest is more mentioning that death is something to be afraid of.
I feel like that's like a different idea, though. I mean, maybe that's contained in the idea of death perfects a person, but death perfects a person is a different proposition than we need not fear death. Like, that is, to me, those are different ideas. And yeah, I'm definitely not on board either with death perfects a person.
Yeah, I mean, what's the worst that could happen?
Well, especially
you could deprive a kid of his child when he's 8 years old, around on several year-long vengeance quests to murder his father's murderer in turn, and it just deprives him of his family and an actual life, where he just basically becomes a twisted, spiteful, hate-filled creature. But that never would happen. Am I right? Am I right?
Oh boy, I know, and you're right. Like this idea, this whole way of looking at things doesn't really seem to consider that very much, because you're supposed to ignore those sort of those kind of connections, like the parent-child connection should not be privileged over the parent's connection to the rest of the universe. You know what I mean? Which to me, that's where I'm like, I hate this. And you could say like, oh, this is just your this is just evolution at work in you, Doc. Like your brain, of course, we're evolved to like love our children. It's nothing more than that. Well, be that as it may, I'm still gonna say that's the whole idea of a not, what am I trying? That scenario you put forward, Shadon, is what turns me off to this whole way of thinking. I just, it's not for me, and that's why I think like it is deeply not rooted in like the priests what is supposed to be his kind of orthodox dogma. I don't think that that's unrealistic. Like I was saying at the beginning, there's still a lot of that going on in Catholicism today. But
this is the thing, though. Like another thing that Vinland Saga does, including going so far as actual Christianity. Also, Norse myth, Valhalla, Thor's teachings, Askeladd's own perspective, Ragnar's, none of them are sufficient. It's telling us that it doesn't mean we should ignore these things outright, but we shouldn't, as you say, be tied to them through dogmatism.
Mm-hmm.
We should be willing to criticize them, to change them, to be better than them, rather than allowing it to let the mistakes of the past keep happening.
This is what I love about Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I don't want to.
Because after all, if Christianity was as good as it purported, like in putting the fear of God in people and giving them incentive to be pious and virtuous people, why are all these wars happening?
That's the $1 million question, my friend. No, but this is this is what I like truly love about this episode. Like something you just said, kind of the way you articulated it, crystallized it for me. That Canute has basically just said, you know what? I, Canute, am tired of participating in a narrative that was handed down to me. Living according to system structures, a grand narrative that I had nothing. That I had nothing to do with writing. Screw that. I'm going to make my own narrative. I'm going to be king. I'm going to provide meaning for everybody, for my life and for my subjects' lives. I'm going to give meaning to battles. I love that. I love that he has decided to make his own narrative rather than kind of
be the author of your own story.
Dictated, living according to like the dictates of this other narrative. You know what I mean? The narrative of Christianity, right? That like God has these things that are good and bad. He has this purpose for your life and what you're supposed to do. Here's how you're supposed to interact with people. Here's how you're supposed to spend your time. Here's like what gives meaning to things. And the real world experience just flew in the face of it. It just blew it to pieces. And so he's like, well, according to that experience and what I think is meaningful, I'm going to make my own narrative of meaning. I'm going to give my own life meaning according to what I value. That is awesome. I think that takes an incredible amount of strength, by the way, to do. And here he is doing it, and I love it.
Yeah. Let's just hope that, as you say, though, he doesn't end up turning nation.
I know.
Takes control of it into something worse. Like,
I know.
That's also a thing to be concerned about. Like, it's all well and good having initiative and all that, and offering your own path in life, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't forget about, like, well, caring about the people and, all that.
Yeah.
You don't get to play Renegade, all the time.
I know.
You need
right?
you need to, consider it as it demands. So it's that kind of pragmatism that I personally quite appreciate, and like that's something I personally believe in. That obviously there are going to be times and places like where hard rules do apply, but there are some times where you have to take a step back, and even if you come back to the same conclusion, it's still worth considering. All right, wait, I think that's let's wrap up this particular cast. So first off, Doc, do you want to give us a quick recap on the polls?
I will give us an update on the polls. Let me hit refresh to update them. Again, vote at Warui Deshou on Twitter. So, here are the polls. Poll number 1. Are you a true fighting game fan if you've never played Clay Fighter? Now, I made this poll because I made a Clay Fighter reference and Shadon did not acknowledge it.
I don't know what that is, so I'm just saying I'm not a fighting game.
Early days, 75% say no. You're not a true fighting game fan if you've never played Clay Fighter. Man, you're missing out, man. You're missing out on these iconic fighting game characters of Bad Mr. Frosty.
Okay.
Blue Suede Goo.
Yes.
Ichabod Clay. Okay, Ichabod Clay. The Blob.
Okay, yeah.
and Helga, among others. All right, this is what Helga's why I brought up Clay Fighter. You could play the original SNES Clay Fighter, or Clay Fighter 63 and a third for the Nintendo 64. That's a real thing. So, okay, poll 2. Did you tear up when Canute said he wished that he was Ragnar's son? 60% say yes, 40% are monsters. Poll 3, is Thorfinn just in a rebellious phase? 67% say, who among us hasn't?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, admittedly, I've not followed a pirate around, kill him. But I've had my moments.
And finally, the poll, is the priest right? The choices are he's onto something and he's off as a rocker. 60% say he's onto something. And those are the polls.
Excellent. All right, let's rate the episode then. I will let you go first. You said this was your favorite episode of the show thus far.
Oh, yeah.
So I can have a guess as to what you're going to rate it, but please do tell.
I loved this episode a lot. Like Shadon just said, it's my favorite so far, even above the early stuff. I still love that early stuff still. But this was, it was really, really heady, but also grimy and down to earth and bloody. It was this great combination of abstract ideas, philosophy, metaphysics being talked about, but not in an ivory tower. It's happening on the ground where people are killing each other and people having to grapple with that. I just loved it. I loved it a lot, and everything that you said it meant for the legacies of these characters, and the progression of Canute, unbelievable. I am going to give it. I'm going to give it 5 heartbreaking, tear-jerking dreams out of 5.
Oh, that's harsh. That's harsh. Right. For me, it's not my favorite episode of the show, but it is up there. It is very, very rich in all of its ideas and motifs. There's a lot to unpack here. And this is, I think, where finally all the setup we've had of paying off. We're starting to see how he relates to Thorfinn and how the parallels happen and how it reminds us that all of the horrible things that have, befallen both of them. Like I say, it doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor, peasant, or prince. You can, like, war itself and for all its meaninglessness, it still destroys lives. It takes them away even from the moment you were born, or taints it going forward. That's quite powerful stuff, because saying war is hell and all that is often, very easy. But I don't think there are many stories that I can think of where it's been very particular about how it's then hurt people even after the war has ended, and then how it continues to come back around and hurt them again, like it has done with Thorfinn and Canute. Thorkel continues to be as wonderful self as always, including the painted, which I can only imagine there's a lot of incredibly thirsty fan art for Thorkel out there, particularly if you're
oh yeah,
or if you're gay, if you're inclined that way. Hey, fair enough. For me, though, I think there was some slightly spotty animation in certain parts I didn't really want to bring up, but like Thorkel's expressions in particular were a bit weird. He almost looked like he was cross-eyed. Felt a bit lifeless. And I still prefer the earlier episodes because I felt they had a tight narrative going, as opposed to what's going on here, where there's plenty going on and it's tightly executed, don't get me wrong. But I think that because the focus was entirely on Thorfinn, I felt much more engagement as opposed to this here, where I feel like we're juggling two characters and it's not really, we're not quite returning to our lead yet. But then again, that's kind of bleed over from the episodes earlier on in the show's run. But these are all minor. So in the end, I will give this episode 4.75 dropped keg sons out of 5. Don't abuse your keg children, folks. Like, look after your beer.
Oh, nurse them well.
Indeed. Right. On that note, thank you everyone very much. Thank you for joining us as we covered episode 18. We're now back in full length. So we'll return, of course, next week for Vinland Saga episode 19, where hopefully, not all of Thorfinn's 200 and so plus bones in his body have been shasted into dust. I mean, how high do you reckon he made it? I'd say at least 50 feet.
Oh, at least. I mean, he was soaring with the birds green and
How he's
brown.
not
So
dead
yeah,
is beyond me, but
he was
that's
probably in like the stratosphere at least, right? The troposphere,
mm,
maybe, is that the lowest one? I think that's the lowest layer, the troposphere.
I don't think he made it quite that high because he definitely but he survived, getting tossed around like a rag doll. So we'll get to see the conclusion of that and what happens next for Canute now he's finally, swished his cloak out and made himself known to the world. If you've enjoyed this podcast, then if you would like to support us financially, you're more than welcome to do so on
Mm-hmm.
Patreon. Please feel check that out at patreon.com/Warui Deshou. Say plenty of great benefits on there. You get to, join us in our Discord. We host game nights and all that. You get to ask us questions on it. You can request us to cover anime if you contribute enough, like particular shows or films that you might be personally interested in our takes on.
And after hours.
After hours, yep, that'll be coming as well. Also, early access to other episodes as we go along. All sorts of great stuff, so do check that out. If, however, you want to just help us out in any other way that you feel that you can do, feel free to give us a like, subscribe, comment, thumbs up, wherever you may find us, be it on SoundCloud, iTunes, or YouTube. All of that helps our discoverability, and we're always up for constructive feedback as well on how we can do things better. So do feel free to send all of that our way. It'd be hugely appreciated.
Yes.
But otherwise, we'll not keep you on any longer. Thank you very much for joining this fine evening. We'll be back next week for more Vinland Saga. And until then, as we're often very fond of saying on this podcast, embrace each other, everyone, to the ends of the universe. Good night.
Good night, everybody.